Hi, and welcome back to Animals 2 by 2, where we take a week-long look at different animals. Today is our day 4 or lesson 4 in our week-long study of worms. At the end of this study, you should be able to observe the structure and behavior of redworms, those little earthworms. Observe the structure and behavior of the nightcrawler, those big earthworms. Compare how redworms and nightcrawlers are alike and different. Be able to communicate your observations of the structures and behaviors of the earthworms. Make observations of the natural world and know that they are descriptors collected using your 5 senses. You should also be raising questions about the natural world, being able to use appropriate reference materials that support your understanding to obtain information. Now, what you'll need: pencil, crayon, markers, pens, whatever you feel comfortable using, paper that you're able to take notes or draw pictures. That way you can always reference it back with any questions. And then we used our Animals 2 by 2 book earlier in the week when we read it. And you can always look back at that, look at those pictures in detail, read more about them, or just review it for your own knowledge. Okay, so some of our vocabulary. Burrow, a hole or tunnel dug by a small animal, especially a rabbit, as a dwelling. But little do most people know that worms also use burrows as their dwelling. So we typically think about those things in rabbits and such, but worms use them as well. We have the word redworm, and it's just a red earthworm. It's used in composting kitchen waste and as fishing bait. Segment. A segment is each of the parts into which something is or may be divided. We see that in the body structure of the redworm and the nightcrawler. Nightcrawler. A nightcrawler is an earthworm, in particular one that comes to the surface at night and is collected for use as fishing bait. And it is a big one for fishing bait. Not near redworms aren't nearly used as much as nightcrawlers because they're in bigger size. They're more easily used as fishing bait. And then an earthworm. An earthworm is a burrowing worm that lives in the soil. Earthworms play an important role in aerating and draining the soil and in burying organic matter. They're really important to the health of gardens and things like that. It's just really healthy for the soil. Okay, so we've been having our investigation on big and little worms. Here in the picture, you see the red worm, and then you see the European nightcrawler. So we've already talked about the red worm quite a bit, and we're going to look at this European nightcrawler or just the nightcrawler in general. There are different types, the European, the Canadian, but we're going to be looking at the nightcrawler itself. So while you're watching, feel free to draw a picture or write some notes down of things that you've seen and that you've learned throughout this process. Night crawlers. Go ahead and take a good look at that picture. You'll see on the top, we're looking at a night crawler versus a red worm on the bottom, or two in this picture. Though night crawler worms can burrow into the depth of 6.5 feet, they generally stay close to the surface. This increases the chances of running across one when you're gardening or playing in the dirt or landscaping. These worms receive their name because you can usually find them feeding above ground at night, but they're really just your common earthworm. When you examine a nightcrawler worm up close, note that their red-gray color and ring-shaped segments are called annuli. Tiny bristles called setae cover each annuli. Nightcrawlers use their setae to slither and move as well as burrow into the ground. If you dissect one of these worms, you will discover that it does not possess a backbone, making it an invertebrate. Nightcrawlers grow to be a whopping 14 inches long and can weigh up to 0.39 ounces. In the wild, the average nightcrawler can live to be 6 years old. The first segment of a night crawler's worm's body contains the mouth. As they burrow, they feed on soil. The dirt contains decomposing leaves and roots, and the worm's body extracts those nutrients from the soil. The fact that they eat plants for energy makes them herbivores. They can eat up to a third of their body weight in a single day. These worms also function as food for many creatures, such as birds, rats, and toads. Commercial and recreational fishermen often dig for night crawlers in order to use them for bait to catch fish. They have an environmental impact. While some areas consider night crawler worms to be an agricultural pest, they provide a valuable service to gardeners, farmers, and the earth. Their tunnels introduce air into the ground and allow the soil to breathe. Aerating gets oxygen to roots to aid growth, help fertilizer and water reach roots, and loosens up compacted soil, which helps roots grow. Plus, their waste transports important nutrients and minerals from the underground to the surface. You can divide night crawlers into two types, European and Canadian. European night crawlers usually measure around 3 inches in length. People use these worms for fishing and composting. People pour their household food garbage into a compost bin where the worms eat it and produce compost through their waste. Then they use the compost to fertilize their lawns and gardens. Others feed these worms to their pet lizards or turtles. Canadian night crawlers grow larger than European night crawlers, up to 14 inches. This makes them great for fishing because they can easily be secured on a fish hook. The worms also remain alive for approximately 5 minutes while underwater. This means their movements can attract fish. They make good bait for freshwater fish such as largemouth bass, trout, and catfish. However, Canadian night crawlers don't like warm temperatures and will die in temperatures above 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Stay tuned for lesson 5, where we'll do some more investigating with worms. We'll be comparing those red worms and night crawlers. Thanks for tuning in.